Hello everybody and welcome to today's video where I'm going to be upgrading a project that was built with Unity's entity component system from entities version 0.17 all the way up to the new entities version 0.50, which was just released pretty recently here. Now this new version of entities 0.50 has a ton of new changes and features that are going to make development so much easier. So it is definitely going to be appealing for a lot of people who are developing a project with Unity ECS to upgrade their project. So what I'm going to be doing today is I'm actually going to be upgrading my Unity project that I used to hold all the sample projects that I've made for these ECS tutorial videos that I've made with entities version 0.17. So I figured this would be just kind of a good way for us to upgrade a test little project here, see what breaks, and kind of work through some things along the way. Now I know that in these sample projects, I don't use every single aspect of Unity ECS, and there's probably going to be a lot of things that will break outside of this that won't be covered in this video, but I still do just want to kind of give a little high-level overview about what you can expect for upgrading your project. And then of course I will leave some links down in the description below to some forum posts and some other resources for you that will be helpful for you if you are upgrading your project, and just kind of figure out what some of the other issues that people are having are. Now I'm actually going to start off by just kind of going over this upgrade document and talking about some of the things that we need to be aware of before starting this upgrade process. First thing is that we need to be running off of Unity version 2020.3.30 or greater. However, just be aware that entities version 0.50 still has an incompatibility with Unity 2021. However, that's expected to be resolved in entities version 0.50. So just be aware about what version of entities you're trying to install and the compatible Unity versions of that. Also, it is highly recommended that you're running an IDE that supports source generation. Basically, the reason being is if you're not using this, you could experience some extra slowness during development. Also, some code might be falsely highlighted as erroneous when it actually is valid code just because the IDE doesn't recognize that properly. You want to be using Visual Studio version 2022 or greater, or Rider version 2021.3.3 or greater. I did realize this, and I did actually have to upgrade my version of Rider just so it is using a compatible version. So anyways, let's go ahead and just kind of scroll through this upgrade document here just to kind of, account for everything before we actually dive into the upgrade process. All right, so the first thing is this calls out renaming the fixed list 128 to fixed list 128 bytes. So this is basically just a type naming change. And it also does mention that all other sizes as well as fixed strings have been renamed accordingly. Basically, again, it's just kind of a naming thing to more accurately reflect that a struct takes up 128 bytes rather than having 128 elements. It looks like the script updater will automatically change this in the API. However, anything that is hard-coded will need to be updated manually. Now next, here's kind of a big change. It's to add the partial keyword to all SystemBase, iSystem, and iSystemBase types. This is actually kind of an efficiency gain on Unity's side because it allows them to take advantage of source generators, which is really helpful for our debugging purposes. So basically we just need to add the partial keyword to all the system base types. Now there is kind of like an automated tool built in that automatically does this for us. With the current version of this tool, there are a couple quirks and things to watch out for, so we will be getting to that in the tutorial section of the video. But of course, we can just kind of manually add the partial keyword to all our systems if we do prefer to do it that way. Next is to upgrade the job component system to system base. So job component system, this type is finally gone. It is no longer supported at all. Everything should be system based now, which is what I've been recommending for some time now. However, I know some of my older videos still do reference the job component system. Of course, you will get an error if you do have the job component system, so you'll just need to change it over to the system base. And then if you kind of scroll through these here, if you are using any job component systems, this kind of just goes through some of the steps that you need to take to actually convert your job component system over into a system base. And it is kind of nice because it gives you a little example of, what your code would look like previously, as well as what your code would look like after the change has been made. Another thing you need to do is rename anything from the iSystemBase to iSystem. iSystemBase is now obsolete, so it's called iSystem now. This is again something that should happen manually from the script updater. Basically, the pop-up is just supposed to come up asking you to back up your changes. Next one is if you are using any of the iJob for each, go ahead and use the new iJob entity job interface. So this is a cool one that I'm excited to dive into a little bit deeper. I know this is a new feature of the entities 0.50. Excited to explore that one a little bit more. And so if you are using any of the iJob for eaches, this just gives you a nice, couple steps about how to upgrade. Again, kind of gives you some information about, what your code might look like before versus what it should look like afterwards. All right, now here are a couple of the big ones. So first is that we need to actually remove the dots editor package because that is basically no longer required. It's all just built into the main entities package. So that's actually a plus. The other ones that are maybe not as much of a plus is that we do actually need to remove the audio as well as the animations packages because they are not supported in version 0.50. So if your project does rely on the audio or animations packages, you will not be able to upgrade to 0.50 at this time, unfortunately. Another thing to watch out for is you do need to use string literals for your entities.withName. I guess previously you could use a constant string and just kind of pass in the variable like that. However, you will actually get an error. So it's just gonna basically asks you to just directly write in the name of the value right there. Another thing we need to do is remove any nested entities.forEach functions. This is something that you were not really supposed to do anyways, and it wasn't ever an intended feature, but there was a way that you could get around it. However, now this code will actually officially throw an error, so you need to remove any instances of any nested entities.forEach functions. Okay, here's just kind of another random one. Add a reference to the jobs package if using unity.entities.register generic job type attribute. So any assemblies that require that basically need a reference to the Unity jobs assembly. So that's whatever. Okay, ensure entities.withReadOnly has valid parameters. I guess there were some instances in the past where you could have some invalid parameters written in there. Basically, if you're doing something incorrectly, you're just going to get some errors. So just that's something to watch out for. Also, remove the platform specific packages and add the com.unity.platform. So you used to originally have to add individual packages depending on what system you wanted to deploy to. Now everything is just all contained under one com.unity.platform, so that is nice. Okay, netcode for entities. There's quite a bit of things in here and changes. I'm not going to go too deep into every single one of these, but if you are using the Unity netcode in your project, would highly recommend just kind of really going through these, making sure you kind of understand what's going on. Looks like they give you plenty of information and some example code there, so hopefully that upgrade process is nice. Unfortunately, I haven't really touched any of the dots netcode stuff myself, so I don't know, how difficult that would be. Another big one we do need to watch out for with the hybrid renderer is that hybrid renderer version 1 is no longer supported. Basically, by default, everything is going to be on the hybrid renderer version 2, which is awesome because it's much better. However, our project does need to be using the universal render pipeline or high definition render pipeline. As it says here, the built-in render pipeline is not supported in hybrid renderer version 2. So if we are using the built-in render pipeline, we will need to upgrade our project to URP. Finally, the physics system, there's just kind of a couple changes. Basically, update trigger event system from job component system to system base. So if you did have your trigger events or anything running in a job component system, you do need to change those over to system base. There also are a few little changes here, which I will be going over in the tour section of the video. Okay, so before we actually get started in upgrading our project, I'm just going to show you, everything that I'm doing to upgrade this project. So you see that I have this ECS tutorials project. And this is basically where I hold, all the sample projects for pretty much all the videos that I've created over the past year or so. Now, I've basically just copied this entire directory here and then, duplicated this into this ECS tutorials upgrade project. So right now, everything in here is exactly the same. This is just going to give us a nice safe place for us to destroy everything we need to in the process of upgrading our project. So we see over in the Unity Hub, I've just gone ahead and loaded this project in. Haven't opened it or anything just quite yet, but I've just gone ahead and gone to here and did add package from disk and navigated to this project right here. So first thing that we're going to want to do is actually upgrade our editor version. You'll see that right now I'm using Unity 2020.3.24. So we will actually just need to upgrade that to the 2020.3.30, as that is going to be basically the lowest compatible version for entities 0.50. So we'll just go ahead and say, yes, we want to update. We're going to go ahead and get another warning, and we can just say continue. And then now Unity is going to go ahead and do the upgrades that it needs to, and then bring that up to the 2020.3.30. Okay, so now we have this project open in Unity. You'll see that we have no major errors here, so that is a good thing. So the first thing that I'm actually going to do is I'm going to upgrade this project to use the universal render pipeline, because this project everything was just built off of the built-in render pipeline using Hybrid Renderer version 1. So I'm just going to fast forward through this section here, but if you do want a little bit more details about how to upgrade your project to the universal render pipeline so you can use Hybrid Renderer version 2, I do have a video on the channel that basically goes through all this in detail. The one thing that you no longer need to do is actually put the scripting defined symbol of the enable hybrid renderer v2, because the hybrid renderer v2 is now just enabled by default. Okay, fantastic. So now our project is upgraded to use the universal render pipeline. So now we can start installing the new entities packages. So of course, we'll just go ahead and go up to Window and Package Manager here. And if we just go to the ones in our project, you'll see that basically we already have, the packages available to us, and we can just go ahead and update these if we want to. So we're just going to go ahead and actually what I'm going to do first is I'm going to remove the dots editor package because we no longer need that. Now would also be a good time to remove the audio and animations packages if you're using those. And then next we're actually going to go ahead and click on the hybrid renderer, go ahead and update that to version 0.50. So again, once the hybrid renderer has been updated, that's going to upgrade many of the dependencies as well. However, a couple other ones that we do need to update are the Havoc physics as well as Unity physics packages. Luckily, when we update the Havoc physics, it's just going to go ahead and update the Unity package as well because of the dependency. Okay, and then once you have everything up to date, you can just go ahead and close out of the package manager, and you'll see that we do have a few errors here. So I'm just going to go ahead and clear this out and see which are the errors that are most pressing for us here. So we can just go ahead and click on these. These are all actually the same error, and I know exactly what this is because I was doing this a little earlier. But basically, there were a few instances where I'm using the entity command buffer to do some operations on an entity query. So there's actually a different way that we have to do this. Instead of doing just a regular ecb.destroy entity query, we can just call a destroy entities for query, and then here is where we can pass in the capsule query. And then there was one other location where it looks like I'm doing this in two places here, and it's pretty simple. We can just do an add component for entity query, and similarly we can just do a remove component for entity query. And then now we get a warning that says the version of burst used by your project has changed. Please restart the editor to continue. We'll say okay. But so now we are now up and running off the new version of entities. So now we need to start changing a couple more things here. So the first is we do need to add a partial to all system-base classes. Now, luckily, like I said, that Unity basically provides us kind of an easy way to do this. We can just go up here to dots, and then down on the dots compiler, there's this option for add missing partial keywords to systems. Now this is kind of an interesting one because it's actually a toggle, so it's either on or off. So just clicking on that right now, it's basically on. And then you'll see down in the lower right hand corner, we just have this little spinning wheel here that's just going to show that it's compiling. Once that completes, that basically means it's added that partial keyword to all the system-based classes. Now, an important thing to note is if you do have any compiler errors in here that's stopping compilation, that operation will actually not run. I didn't realize it the first time I did this. I had a couple errors in here that I didn't clear out yet, and I thought I ran it, but then I went and checked my code, and then I didn't see the classes changed. And it looks like the same thing is actually happening here. I did get an error message on this. Luckily, I know exactly what this error is because I ran into it before. But this is kind of some of the bugs about using some brand new technology here. So you'll see that basically what this is saying here is saying, like on my battle system, it says seeing this error indicates a bug in the dots compiler. We'd appreciate a bug report. And then it doesn't really give you too much information here, so you kind of gotta do a little hunting and pecking to figure out what is going on. So actually I did come across something on the forums that kind of gave me a hint about what this was. People were getting this error related to the get singleton function. Now, I was actually getting it in relation to the set singleton function. It seems like basically just using the set singleton function unfortunately throws this error. I have actually gone ahead and reported the bug, so hopefully that is something that will be resolved in the next version. I know there were some comments about some bug fixes in relation to the get singleton ones being fixed. So hopefully this is something that you won't have to deal with too much. And so it's actually this set singleton line right here is the issue. If we comment this out, this error goes away. okay. Now, luckily, we can just change this pretty easily to do a set component rather than a set singleton. We'll just go ahead and pass in the player entity. I do have a reference to that entity of the singleton that I want to set. And again, we can just go ahead and pass in this player experience data component like that. And you'll see up at the top, I don't have any issues doing a get singleton entity or a get singleton or anything like that. It was only happening for me on the set singleton. So that's just something to watch out for. So then once you have all those errors clear away, come back and we get a whole bunch of new errors. Let's just see, we can clear these out and that all works fine. Now let's come back over to our code and you'll see that our system bases now have been updated with the partial class here. And if we just go through all these, you'll see that every system is going to have that partial keyword on it right there. So that is what we want to see. Now then, once that is all set, important thing that we must remember that we need to do is we just do need to go back to the dots and dots compiler and uncheck this add missing partial keywords to systems right there, just so it doesn't keep trying to add that partial keywords to all our systems here. Again, it's going to do a little recompilation. And at this point, I would recommend doing a restart of Unity one last time just to clear everything out. All right, and so you'll see that I do have a couple warnings in here. You'll see that these are basically just kind of some minor warnings. It looks like there are some API changes coming up for some API that is going to be outdated. So it's not going to, be a complete deal breaker, but something that we do want to take care of. So this project is now pretty much fully up to date. Real quickly, I'm actually just going to run through all these sample projects that I have, just kind of pop in, just make sure they all still run and compile and we're not getting any major errors with them. I definitely will keep you updated if I find anything weird. All right, well, cool. So I basically just went through all the sample projects here, and pretty much the only issues that I was running into was things with upgrading to the universal render pipeline, just making sure that, all the assets had a universal render pipeline equivalent. If some things were just showing up as pink, when you hit the play button, you actually don't see them because of the way the hybrid renderer works. So you just need to make sure that you go into the scene and set the proper materials. Other than that, everything worked pretty much seamlessly. All right, and with that, so I'm actually going to go ahead and upgrade my other project to entities 0.50. Reason being is because I know there's some physics things in there, so I want to see how that works, because I don't think I'm actually using anything with physics in here. All right, so I've gone ahead and updated my other project to entities 0.50. This is basically the project that I used to showcase the selection system ones. So I know this one does use some Unity physics in here, and so it looks like we already do have a couple errors. Actually, one real quick thing that I did just want to point out, over in the project settings in our player, we actually no longer need these scripting defined symbols, so we can just safely remove that right there and just go ahead and apply that, because it's just going to use the hybrid render version 2 by default, because this project was already using the hybrid render version 2. However, let's go ahead and clear out these errors. Let's see if we just double click on these, see if this brings us to the correct spot, and it looks like it is going to. And so basically you'll see the error that we're getting right here is when we actually go to schedule our trigger events job. So it actually does no longer need this build physics world, so we can just safely remove that right there, just like that. And actually, we just don't need this variable at all, so we can just go ahead and remove it from there as well as there. And indeed, it looks like I am using this in one other place in this project, so I can just go ahead and remove that. And same thing, we'll just go ahead and remove these variables because they're no longer being used here. Okay, so we come back over to Unity. It's again going to ask us to restart the editor. And I think we do actually have to restart the editor. That OK button doesn't actually do it like I thought it did previously. But so we can just go ahead and close out of that and open it back up, no problem. All right, so now that we have no errors in the console, again, I'm just going to go ahead and do the dots compiler to add the partial keywords to the system base classes. Okay, all kinds of errors. Let's clear it out and see what sticks. Okay, so all system-based classes must be derived with the partial keyword, and I wonder if that didn't stick for some reason. Looks like we do have the partial keyword here. Writer is doing some operations. Looks like it's finished. Come back to Unity and everything's gone. Okay, so it looks like that went well. We'll just come back here and go ahead and remove that, so it's no longer going to try and add the partial keywords to any of our scripts here. Okay, and well, I guess now's the moment of truth. Let's hit play and see if it works. So let's see if we can go ahead and click on each of the entities. Looks like that still works fine. And we can drag a selection area. Okay, looks like that is not working. Anyways, figured out what was going on. Basically, if you saw the video that I made on creating a multiple unit selection system in Unity ECS, you'll know that basically what I do is when you kind of drag out that selection area, what's going to happen is it takes those 4 points, it kind of projects them out into the world from the camera, and then we create a mesh basically from the camera point to those 4 points out in the world. So it just kind of like throws this pyramid out into the world, and anything that is selectable inside that basically volume that we've spawned is going to be selected. Now, I did come across 2 issues which were happening here. One of them is there are some updates that kind of need to be made to anything that is related to physics inside your game project. So basically what you actually do is you go up to Window and Dots and Physics, and there's this Upgrade Data option here. And then it just says this Upgrade Physics Data. I had the Upgrade Materials selected as well. Basically, you just hit Upgrade and then Upgrade. You know, it has you, of course, make a backup of the project. But I am working in just kind of a basically throwaway project anyways. I have all the original files completely backed up. And then you'll see that under the upgraded section, it basically upgrades all these things. It kind of makes some changes to mostly the prefabs and some of the scenes. I guess there is just some kind of like extra data that is needed. So anyways, that is all well and good. However, what was actually happening is when I would go to, drag my selection area and try to spawn that basically pyramid into the world, it wasn't spawning into the world. Like, I mean, I could see it in the hierarchy and all the data appeared correct on it. But when I had all the physics debug data displayed, and then you see I went to go create the selection area, nothing actually spawns inside the world here. Now, if we go over to the dots hierarchy, again, we can see this right here. All the data appears correct and everything like that. And it was set up and working in the other version of the entities and physics packages. But the trick is that I found out that we had to do is we do actually have to add one more extra component to this selection archetype that we're spawning into the world. So it's just a type of physics world index. There is a public unsigned integer value associated with that, but basically I guess it's just an extra component that the physics system needs in order to function properly. So now you'll see when we enter play mode, we drag the selection area, we now do get this basically big pyramid that we've spawned into the world, and everything is all well and good. We are selecting units once again. And just kind of for showcasing purposes, I had it live in the world a little bit longer than it normally would, but basically you'll see that it just kind of quickly flashes in the world there because it just lives for basically one physics step. But that is all that is needed in order to select entities. So anyways, that is another issue that I came across. Of course, I will be posting it kind of in that forum thread about some of the issues that people have been finding with entities 0.50 so far. This isn't necessarily an issue per se, but it is just something extra that is needed and something that you do need to watch out for. But anyways, I think that should be about it for today's video. I kind of went through the upgrade process of actually basically 2 projects here, just to kind of, walk you all through the process, kind of show you the main things that you need to do, things that you need to look out for. Again, I would really appreciate it if you do say, leave in the comments, any other issues that you were coming across. There's definitely some weird things that are not in the documentation. So I would kind of like to have a basically running list of things, maybe in the pinned comment of this video. If you do have any solutions for your issues, definitely post those as well. I do want to include all that stuff in that pinned comment of the video. So anyways, I do hope that you did find today's video helpful. I hope all goes well for you upgrading your project from entities version 0.17 to 0.50. A lot of exciting things in 0.50 that I'm really looking forward to diving into much deeper. So definitely stay tuned for those videos. We're going to be having a lot of fun over here. Of course, if you do have any questions or suggestions for any future videos, you can always leave those down in the comment section or over on Discord over at tmg.dev/discord. If you did enjoy today's video and you found it helpful, I would really appreciate it if you hit that like button. Also, subscribe to the channel for lots more videos about Unity's data-oriented technology stack and their entity component system and all kinds of things with the new 0.50 version. Anyways, thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your day, and I'll see you in the next one.